What is going on, you sons of bitches? Welcome to Create and Destroy. I'm your host, Dan Donnarumma. This is episode 41. As always, I'm very excited about today's episode, but before we get into who I've got on for today's episode, first, I want to let you guys know that recently, my episode with Lingua Ignota's Kristen Hayter actually broke 1,000 downloads, which is awesome as hell. I mean, in the grand scheme of podcasts, that's not the craziest number out there, but I do think that that's pretty freaking awesome, especially considering the fact that this is an entirely DIY podcast, and the guests that I usually have on the podcast are DIY underground musicians, and typically even then it's a very niche subset of underground music. So the fact that an episode like my interview with Kristen Hayter can surpass 1,000 downloads is awesome as hell. And as of today, February 3rd, the podcast is nearing 10,000 total downloads for all of my episodes, which again is just really freaking cool. When I started this podcast, never thought that these would be numbers that the show would hit. And again, I know these aren't the largest numbers in the world, but I still think it's really freaking cool. Seriously, thank you guys so much. All of you that tune in for each episode, all of you that reach out to me on Instagram and interact with me on social media. It's freaking awesome. This podcast has been more than I could have ever asked for, especially in like a 1.5 year time frame. So it means a lot to me, guys. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. With all of that said, let's talk about the guests that I have for you guys today. I got the homies from Lacing to come back onto the podcast. So Jerry Reed, Joe Davenport of Lacing, and then also my homeboy Thom Wasluck for Planning for Burial. And Jerry and Joe have been on the podcast. This would be their 3rd time coming onto the show. Thom, his 2nd. Thom was actually one of the first people that I ever interviewed for this podcast. So I was really excited that I was able to have these 3 guys come onto the podcast and for us to shoot the shit about some of our favorite music from 2019. We delved into our top 5 favorite albums from 2019, and we had a super awesome conversation. I really enjoyed my time speaking to those guys. So shout out to Thom, Jerry, and Joe for coming onto the podcast and having an awesome conversation with me. So let's get into it, guys. Here's my conversation with Jerry Reed, Joe Davenport, and Thom Wasluck. So gentlemen, how you guys doing tonight?
Excellent.
Good.
Great. Excellent.
So before we get started, I'm just going to have each of you guys introduce yourself. So I'm going to start with my boys in Tennessee. Why don't you guys start first?
Yo, this is Joe Davenport from Lacing.
This is Jerry from Lacing.
I'm Thom Wasluck from Planning for Burial and various other things.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and doing this. So this is the first time I've tried something like this, so I have no fucking clue how it's going to go. But I think I'm sure like we'll make it work. So what we're going to do is we'll talk about our favorite albums of the year, and I will start us off first. So we're going to go through our top 5, and my pick for number 5 is Absolute Still Life from Wreck-N Reference. So shit, I absolutely fucking love this album. It is so good. When it first came out back in July, the Flenser put it out. I should probably mention that as well. But when it first came out back in July, it was kind of unexpected, the sound that the album took. And it took a little bit for me to kind of get into it, but once I did, I fell in love with this album so much. So Wreck-N Reference is the project from Felix Skinner and Ignat Friese. I hope I'm pronouncing Ignat's name right. And shit, correct me if I'm wrong here in this description, guys, but it's like a mixture of noise, punk, metal, like avant-garde and experimental stuff. It's just such a fucking awesome mixture of all these different genres. And one of the things that I love about Wreck-N Reference is the fact that both Felix and Ignat sing, and there is that mixture of Ignat's abrasive vocals and Skinner's more like spoken word style of singing. And This album differs from some of their previous releases and definitely from their last release, Indifference Rivers, Romance Ends, which was my favorite album of the year back in 2016. So it's not as heavy, I would say.
Yeah, it lost the metal and the punk on this one.
Yeah. So it's not as heavy. And I love that. I love that the band didn't rest on their laurels, that they put something different out. Some of my favorite songs from this album: A Mirror is so goddamn good. Sturdy Dawn is probably my favorite song from the record. Eris Came to Me at Night is awesome. And then Dumb Forest, such a good song. So that's my pick for number 5, Absolute Still Life from Reckon Reference. So Tom, I'll have you go next. What was your pick at number 5?
I had the new Liturgy album. I don't know if you want to call it hack or...
Yeah, I don't know how the hell to pronounce it.
I mean, yeah... Fucking, he's got a lot of shit on the internet for all of his different, like, transcendental metal shit, but I've never really cared about that, because this shit's always been very good, and I was kind of worried about where it was going to go without, like, Greg Fox drumming, but, like, the orchestral stuff on this record just, like, blew me away, just, like, it's just wild. They're 8-minute songs, and towards the end, it's just, like, the synth shit going on while they're doing the metal. It's just, he's doing things that no one else is doing, and, like, the fucking diehards, I think, give a lot of shit to him.
What? Okay, so I have a question. I have a liturgy question for you guys because, like, I'm not a huge liturgy fan or anything, but like, I thought that some of the stuff that he did on the artwork was like really fascinating, even though I don't like that record. Does that make sense? Like,
because
the textures to it are like super out there.
Yeah, I don't really like that record too much either, but I feel like on this one, whatever he was trying to do on that last one, he perfected.
So his music is, I feel like I've mentioned this a couple of times in some interviews, people either love his music or hate it. And I think this album is a complete home run from him. It's so goddamn good.
I almost wasn't going to give it a listen at all. I saw everybody posting about it and I was like, fuck it. And then I ended up listening to it and I was just like, holy fucking shit, this is like ridiculous.
Yeah, and I wish I gave this album more time before I put out my list of favorite albums, because it probably would have wound up being higher.
That's why I wait till the last day of
yeah, I should have waited, man, because it's so goddamn good, dude. It's so awesome.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think the thing that it's going to end up being my number 1 is something like that, where I didn't get to hear it until way later. And then if we hadn't waited this long to do the podcast, I probably wouldn't have had it as high, because I'd only heard it maybe like once or twice.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, what the hell the cover art for that album is about?
No fucking idea.
I have no clue either.
And that's the thing, like, so I feel like I've gotten very good, like, I don't care about the mythology or whatever he's doing, because at least it's not fucking, like, some backwoods neo-Nazi shit. It's just some, like, weird transcendental shit. I don't fucking get it, but the music fucking rules. Yeah,
so I completely agree. It's such a great album. So shit. All right, so we'll start with Jerry. What's your pick for number 5?
Well, here's the thing with my list. 2 through 5 can and will change at any moment. So they're not really in any order. But we'll say number 5 is the new Torche album, Admission.
Oh, yeah.
I've been a huge fanboy from them since, like, hearing demos for the first album. So I always look forward to the records, and I love the new one. It's great. It still is heavy. They try some new things and totally nail it. The title track, I've seen people diss it, but I also know people are stupid because it's just ridiculous. It's like poppy and beautiful, but still heavy and driving, and that's just a band that can't do wrong in my eyes, and I think they nailed it.
I love that the new record has like more shoegazy aspects to it, because that's something
the
that
early stuff kind of did too, with when Juan was in.
Yeah, that's true.
I was gonna say, does this have a thing to do with that Jonathan switched over to guitar from bass after all of these years, and it kind of just, I felt like, because I've liked all their other records, but this one really felt like it hit home for me too, and I wonder if that, like, just the switching of the players and stuff around just really just like drove that home a little bit. They felt a little more creative or on point. I don't know how you would call it, but
So shit, I'm gonna be the odd man out and say that I'm not a big Torche fan. I can't get into the vocals.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
One of the best. That is one of the best parts.
I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
Like,
Absolutely.
I even tried to
That's
give
okay, baby.
this album a listen, and I think I made it through like 2 or 3 songs. Just like I can't do it. I can't get into the vocals.
That's all right.
And that, yeah, it's totally fine, but wow.
I know. I'm sure people listening to this are probably are going to be like, what the fuck? Because I know people love Torche.
I love the fact that they do those sugary, clean vocals over like some brutal ass shit.
yeah.
It really sets it off. I mean, starting from that last Floor record up to now.
I will
So
say, I saw them. It had to be like 3 or 4 years ago now. I saw them in Buffalo. They played with nothing, and I will give them credit, man. They were pretty fucking good live.
Oh, I've seen them probably like 5 times, and they kill it every time.
Yeah, they were badass.
Grind bands and like just heavy bands, and they still nail it. But yeah, they just kill it every time.
All right,
Definitely.
sweet. So, Joe, who do you got at number 5?
I'm going to say the new Appleseed cast record, Fleeting Light of Impermanence. And I know you talked about that on one of the other podcasts where you were cutting down like up to like 6 or whatever. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I've been a fan of this band probably since Into the Ring Wars, although like that's a record that I never go back to now.
Never.
And I kind of don't like it.
Yeah, I can't even tell you the last time I listened to that album.
Me neither. And I love this band.
But like I will say that as a longtime fan and a person who like I would put Mari Vitalis and Low Level Owl like in my top 5 favorite records of almost with anything else I've ever liked. I mean I still listen to those all the time. And I think this record is like maybe the most consistently great thing they've done since those 2 records back to back. Like the production on it's really nice and clean. It certainly sounds a lot better than the record before the one that they like kind of self-produced. And maybe it's because it has John Congleton producing it or whatever. And I think he did Peregrine, and that record sounds really different from Low Level Owl and that kind of era stuff and like 2 Conversations, but it has like its own vibe. And this record sounds like almost like that era, like the Ed Rose produced era of stuff, but done by a different producer or whatever. That makes sense.
So, man, I fucking love that album. It's so good. How do you like In Conversations or no? Because I see sometimes people are into that album and then some people are not into it.
2 Conversations is one of my favorite records of all time.
Is it? Wait, did I say In Conversations or is it?
I knew what you meant. It's 2 Conversations.
Oh, that album is so fucking good, and I love the last album they put out too.
It's weird because when 2 Conversations came out, I was one of those people that I was like, I don't like this record at all, because I was like way into Low Level Owl and expecting them to go like even farther out with doing like almost like Slow Dive, Pygmalion kind of stuff. And the fact that they dialed it back in and made a pop record was one of those things where like I was disappointed in it at first, but I really like that record now because I've been listening to it for like, I guess it's like almost over 15 years old now.
Yeah, man, which is
it
wild.
came in 2003 or 2004. I got into them when that record came out, and so I was like listening to that and Low Level at the same time, so I didn't have that same thing that you did, but I love that record. Maybe it's because it's the romanticism and the breakups of it.
Yeah, man. Because one of my favorite Appleseed cast songs is the last song in that album. What the fuck is it called? A Dream for Us. I love that damn song.
Yeah. It's so weird thinking too that like I think Christopher Creechy's like the only original member of that band left. Like I think all the other guys are different now. Like even Aaron Pillar left after like the record before this.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
I wish I've gotten to see them more. I've only been able to see them twice. Once in New York City, it was years ago when they did the Low Level Owls in its entirety, and then a few years ago in Rochester after they had released, what was it, Illumination Ritual, I think was the name of their last album. Which did you get into that album?
I like that record.
Oh, I love that record.
I'm super jealous that I'm super jealous that you got to see that Low Level Owl tour. I've watched a YouTube video of that numerous times where they play the whole record.
Dude, it was so good.
I think they're gonna do it again.
I heard that
awesome.
too. I saw them when they toured for Mari Vitalis in a house show in Knoxville, Tennessee. And there were maybe 5 people there. Like no one flyered for the show. It was poorly attended, and they pretty much played all of Mari Vitalis from start to finish. It was amazing. And it was one of those things where like every person that I was there with was like, I felt like left going like, I saw one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. I would put that in like my top 2 or 3 shows I've ever been to.
Yeah, man, I have to say, sorry, but that Low Level Owls 1 and 2 show was incredible. It was so goddamn good. They had like a light show going on too, and I mentioned this in my last episode that they did an intermission in between each album, and they played a scene from Saved by the Bell, which was awesome as hell.
That's super weird.
Yeah.
That seems like really out of character for that.
Now I need to ask, they did the intermission, so did they bring it down with a view from a burning city and then bring it back up when they came back? Do you remember?
I can't even tell you. Yeah, I don't remember, man.
Because I was going to ask if they just like full on just like really droned that out and like did it, but...
I couldn't even tell you.
It's weird. I saw them in 2005 when they toured for Peregrine, and they had the drummer for Coalesce playing drums for them at that time. And so all the songs that they played like on that tour sounded really different because his drumming style is so different from the Josh Baruth, the guy that played on Low Level Owl and Mara Vitalis and Two Conversations. It was like, I don't know. It certainly didn't sound like the same kind of drumming that guy does in Coalesce, but it was like definitely noticeably not as busy.
Yeah, I was going to say, because their original drummer's known for busy shit and doing all that bell stuff.
Yeah. And he certainly, like, when I saw them do that Mari Vitalis tour show, like, seeing him, like, he's one of the best drummers I have ever seen live. Like, and I heard that he left the band because they had some kind of creative differences where it's like they felt like he couldn't keep that up long term over the course of, like, the other records. I don't know.
I love that you guys are dropping all this like Appleseed cast knowledge. I didn't even know that they had like almost an entire new band. If you would have asked me, like, yeah, it's probably all the original members. I had no fucking clue.
Dude, I've never even heard them.
Oh, you got to get on them after this, man.
You. No, so far the only thing I've heard is what I mentioned. So I'm keeping a mental list for
all
tomorrow.
All right, good.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
So we're gonna go in a different order this time. So Jerry, you're starting us off for number 4. So give us your number 4.
Guess I'm gonna go with All Your Sister's Trust Ruins.
Hell yeah!
Kind of came out of nowhere for me. I heard the album before it and I liked it all right, but then when this one dropped, I think it went next level. I'm really bad with names, even though I've met the people in the band, we played with them, so I apologize. But the vocals are just so good. They're like dramatic, but not theatric and corny. They're just, I don't know, they're very cathartic and real. And live, they were great, which I didn't know how they were going to pull it off.
They're an amazing live band.
Yes. And sometimes not saying that they're trying to go for it, but I get like kind of a broken era 9 Inch Nails vibe at times. And I really like that. So
yes,
it was like if that era of 9 Inch Nails meets a post-punk band. It was like they were so good live.
When we played with them in the summer in California, and that's all I kept being. I'm like, this is just fucking 9 Inch Nails as a post-punk band, and it's amazing. They are such a good fucking live band. It isn't even funny.
Yes, they are.
Oh, you guys are killing me. I was supposed to go to their New York City show, but I couldn't go at the last minute. And everything I've heard about their live set is that they're incredible live.
Oh, you haven't seen them?
No, I have not seen them. So yeah, their most recent tour. Who did when they came to the East Coast? Who was it with? Were they playing maybe with Elizabeth Collerwill? I can't remember who the fuck they were touring with.
They switched it off all the time, but it wasn't Elizabeth Collerwill.
The show they played with us, I'm trying to think of who
was
else
it.
played that
maybe
show.
Sonnet they were supposed to play with. Anybody. I can't even remember.
Sonnet was supposed to play the New York show, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, and I'm bummed I didn't get to go to it. But anyway, yeah, I've heard that their live set's supposed to be incredible. So shit, all right. So then, Tom, what do you got for number 4?
Number 4 is a band from Philadelphia called Time Loss. The name of the record is Don't Remember Me for This. So I came across them through them emailing me originally. They asked me sometime in, I want to say like August, to like do their record release show at the end of October, but I was going to play Philly just beforehand, so I was like, I didn't really want to, and I'm kind of like in this mode right now where I hate playing shows. So I listened to one song, and I was like, it's pretty good, and I kind of forgot about it, and then one of the guys on the Flenser group he does his Friday post where he posts every single thing that, comes out for that day. And it was on that list and I went and checked it out and I was just like, holy fuck. It's like dudes who used to play in the band, I think Set and Settings or something like that. And the black metal band, Whoa. But they're doing like alternative It's like alt rock, and they're gonna get the word shoegaze thrown in there because everybody uses that now. But it's like more like a what you are an actual shoegaze band though. But there's so many bands that are like
I know what you mean.
Yeah, there's all these pop punk bands that throw some reverb and chorus on there, and all of a sudden it's shoegaze.
That's the stuff. I'm going to say this because Tom just said that, and I've said this to Jerry. I will call that Warped Tour shoegaze. Death to Warped Tour shoegaze.
But I think they're just like, if you took away the the reverb and the delay that they're even using on Time Lost record, I just think it's a solid like alternative rock record. It's got really driving parts. It's got a lot of melody. It's a lot of things that stuck with me. So. Again, that was another late addition because that came out towards the end of October or so.
Yeah, I think I just heard it like 3 weeks ago, and I agree with what you're saying. It's great.
Yeah, I was
very surprised.
I got to give that album more of a listen. I completely forgot about that fucking album because you told me about it, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, that day I listened to it, I was like losing my mind, and I just kept listening to it.
So I don't know. Correct. You've listened to them more, but when I listened to that album, the first band that popped into my mind was Balance and Composure, but a better version of what Balance and Composure did. Which knock against Balance and Composure.
No, you're right because I like Balance and Composure, but I think whereas Balance and Composure in their later years started going more towards like the brand new sound for a little little more emo, they don't do this as much, if at all.
So shit, yeah. Thanks for reminding me because I got to get back into that album. So fuck. All right, I'm gonna go for my number 4 pick, and I've got Lightroom by Drowse. I had Kyle on the podcast back in the summer, and I told him how much I enjoyed this album. It is so goddamn good. Drowse is like a mix of shoegaze and ambient and slowcore, and it's fucking awesome. And this is another release by the goddamn mighty Flenser. And I told Kyle this.
That guy.
I told Kyle this when he was on the podcast, but his previous album, Cold Air, is really tough for me to revisit. As amazing as that album is, it's super hard to go back to and revisit. And Light Mirror is definitely not the case. I've listened to it a bunch since it's come out. When it came out, I just basically was listening to it on repeat. And I've got back into listening to it recently because it's so damn good. And
I play on that record.
Yes, you do, Tom. So I wanted to. So I figured, shit, since I'm gonna have you on here tonight, I'm gonna have to ask you something about it because you're on the last track in the album, "Don't Scratch the Wound," and I love that song. So whose idea was it to collaborate? Was it yours or Kyle's?
Kyle's. He messaged me. He sent me a couple songs. I was supposed to do something on Cold Air, and it was like towards the end of the time I was like finishing writing and recording Below the House, and I was just burnt out and I just couldn't find anything, so I just didn't play on that record. So he wanted me to do something on this one, and I think it worked out pretty great.
How long did it take for you to write that like drone that you play in that song?
Not long. I mean, it wasn't like I set everything up and just listened to it a few times and just worked on some things. And there's like a drone, and I'm not sure if he kept it, but there's some like panning like synth stuff too I did on that one. And the thing I did on the record, like on that song, isn't even like that like pronounceable, but we both agreed from listening to other parts it gave it more body.
Yeah, and like Kyle and I talked about this when he was on, that I love too, because you could totally tell this is like Tom putting his style into that song. So yeah, that song is fucking awesome, man.
That record is incredible. I'll tell him I like Cold Air, but that took me a long time to like, because to me I felt like that was a floating room record at first. And
really?
Kyle and I've had long car rides where we've talked about this over and over, but yeah, Light Mirror is an incredible record, and when he was doing like the solo versions of those songs on the tour we did, and they were a lot closer, I was just amazed by him.
Hell still. Yeah, man. I'm so glad I got to see him when he came out to the East Coast. So my favorite songs from the album, Bipolar 1 is great. Internal World is probably my favorite Drowse song. It is so fucking good. This is another song where I very rarely listen to songs on repeat, and I would just listen to the song on repeat for quite a length of time. And then I love the song Betty. So yeah, number 4, Light Mirror by Drowse.
I I'm glad that you brought that record up, Dan, because I had that record pretty high on my list at like number 2, I think. And now I'm not going to talk about it more when you get to, I've been slowly like moving out stuff that other people have been talking about. but it's funny because I love that Drowse record big time. And like, there was a weird point where like, for whatever reason, every time I would like hook my phone up to the stereo in my car, like that Scratching the Wound song from Light Mirror would be like the first song that played. It would like try to autoplay that every time, and I'd be like, "Okay, I'll just go with this."
What a song to start your day with.
Yeah.
Well, that goes on to why I love Drowse, but I'm never in the right place to listen to his stuff because it's not really conducive to like a busy workday environment.
No. It's heavy.
And I might listen to it driving home tonight because I'll be in the car by myself and it's dark and cold.
That's when they do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There has definitely been a couple of times where like I'm listening to Bipolar 1 and it's just like, oh fuck. That song, especially on that album, I think is the most depressing. But yeah, I mean, same thing with Cold Air. There have been a couple of times where like, I'm listening to Drowse or I'm listening to another Flenser band, and then Spotify will just play similar bands, and then a song from Cold Air will come on and be like, oh boy, I think I need to skip this one. All right, so Joe, give us your number 4.
Okay, my number 4 is the band Friendship's album Undercurrent that came out on Southern Lord.
They're America. Yeah,
they're a power violence band that's
not
from
the
Japan.
Philadelphia Friendship?
Not that band.
The band that doesn't have Google. My bad.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So I mentioned, this is how I described Friendship to the guy who runs Elder Magic. We were talking about this summer, and it's like a bunch of guys in Japan heard His Hero Is Gone and were like, let's start a band like that, but now. And, being a Tennessean, and I mean, I don't know if Jerry feels this way too, but like I will hardcore rep His Hero Is Gone is the best band that has ever been from this state. Like I worship that band. I saw them when I was in high school, and it was like one of the gnarliest, sweatiest shows I've ever been to. I watched a guy put his head through a wall at the show.
So fuck, I thought His Hero Is Gone had members of Tragedy in it. Am I mistaken?
Yeah.
No, they later became Tragedy.
Yeah,
they moved to Seattle.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But Portland by way of Memphis.
Portland.
All right.
But His Hero Is Gone's way less straight up DBD anthem and more just like crust, nasty.
Yeah.
Like the van had to reek of just like dirty white guy dreadlocks.
Yeah.
Even if no one in the band had them, but it did. It's like everything is that every bit of clothing is that color brown. That crusty brown it just forms. It's so good.
I had a tape when I was in high school that had like 15 counts of arson on one side, and I'm trying to think of what was. I think it had like Uranus or one other of those like 90s like really crusty like screamy bands on the flip side, and it would just like loop over and over and over again.
How many holes did you put in walls as a kid? I mean, all that like testosterone of growing up, and then fucking jacking that into your head all day.
It was the coping mechanism.
That's how Tennessee does it.
Yeah, but that Friendship record is like it's gnarly sounding, and I mean because it's so short, I would just play it all the time. It was probably the record I
new one.
Played the most this year. Even if it's not my favorite thing, it's the one that I heard the most.
Tom, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I haven't listened to that one yet. I've listened to the one from a few years ago called Blueberry, and I really liked it. But I feel like it's a time and place thing for me where like I need to be in that like frame of mind.
Oh yeah.
How angry were you this year, Joe?
I went through a phase like after we made Without, where it's funny because Dan asked me this question on the podcast about, or I think maybe Rob asked me this question about like how after making a record like that, did I feel like I was still in that kind of emotional turmoil? And I said no, but then it was like I kept going through this thing where like after that, I won't say that it's things like that I'm still dealing with that in my day-to-day life, but there's like a negativity from like having that as a life experience that sort of sometimes feels like it carries over into my day-to-day, and I'm just always pushing it down.
Black clouds float, man. Anything else?
So hold on, let me just make sure I understand this. So you're like the stigma associated with kind of some of the shit that you talk about and Without.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that like I don't know, it's sort of background anger. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. You try not to let it like come out or like affect your day to day and stuff.
But being like in it so much with the record and talking about it kind of made it.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, shit. So, all right, I started us off for 5. Jerry started us off for 4. So, Tom, we'll have you start off for 3.
Number 3 for me is A Gaze Among Us by Big Brave.
Fuck yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Super good record.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what to say about it sometimes, because I've seen them perform it this year a few times, or last year. And it's, yeah, like, I feel like the band, they just stepped it up. Like, doing this record with Seth at Machines with Magnets, like, some of the production stuff on this record where it's like the guitars and everything are fucking clipping, but the vocals and the drums are not. It's just, like, mind-blowing. It's just, it's so meditative, but it's also the same thing where you're talking about, like, that background anger. Like, you want to fucking punch holes through walls when you're listening to it, but it's like a heavy drone record. I just love it, and I got to see them perform at Basilica this year, where they had Jessica doing violin drone with them the whole time. It was just incredible.
Oh, wow.
Dude, so that album is my number 2 pick of the year. It is so fucking good, man. And I'm so happy that I drove to Wilkes-Barre to see them play with you, because they were fucking incredible. And they were so goddamn loud. It was insane. So
I could not believe how loud they were.
Dude, they were so loud. Yeah, so I completely agree with everything that you just said. I feel like that album is like drone metal at its finest. It's so fucking good. And like Robin Waddies, I hope I'm pronouncing her last name, her vocals are incredible, and I love that she has these, like, they're beautiful vocals, but they also kind of just sound, I don't want to say abrasive.
You can hear the pain.
Yes.
You can hear the pain in them.
Yeah.
Yes.
To me, I felt like even just seeing this band live, not just on the record, but like, and now with their new drummer too, Tess, playing with them, they are completely honed in. Like, they are like running on like all cylinders right now.
Yes.
I can't wait to see what they do next. I really can't.
And one of the things that I love about this album that I just feel makes it so incredible is that the album delves into stuff like gender, patriarchy, and power. And if you had no clue, if you didn't understand any of the lyrics at all, you could just feel the tension and, like you said, Tom, pain in these songs. And then when you couple that with the fact that these songs do delve into gender and patriarchy and stuff like power, to me, it makes just such a goddamn dynamic and propulsive combination. So yeah, that's my number 2 pick of the year. It's so goddamn good.
That Big Brave record reminds me of like, and I hope that they would take this as a compliment, but it's like, it reminds me of like if you were hearing a Breeders record, if the Breeders were a sludge band. And I'm a huge Breeders fan. Like, I will say that like us having gotten to play with Kelly Deal was like, you know, a dream come true for me. But like at my house, we have a huge framed Last Splash poster on the wall. So yeah, but that's what that record sounds like to me. And like, it got a lot of play from me and Jerry, I know for sure.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So I'm assuming you guys listened to their last album, Ardor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you feel this album stacks up to their previous one, Ardor?
Oh, it's way better.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I like Ardor, but I feel like I didn't listen to that as much as I did this one or Adi La.
I completely agree. And I don't know if part of it too is that there's the songs, I don't know if they're shorter, because I think there's 6 songs on A Gaze Among Them, but I feel like they might be a little bit shorter than the songs, because I think there was only 3 songs on Ardor. But yeah, I definitely feel like A Gaze Among Them, hell yeah, A Gaze Among Them is just like, it's hands down, I think, their best album that they've released thus far. It's so fucking good.
You know, I think with Ardor, the thing about it is, I mean, look at this cover. I mean, it's black. It was a dense record. I felt like when I listened to it, it was like a black hole I was in. I love the new record.
Yeah, I completely agree. So we're gonna skip me because we're gonna go, because I talked about my number 2. So I'll go last with my number 3. So Joe, we'll have you talk about your number 3.
Okay, my number 3 record is Telefon Tel Aviv's Dreams Are Not Enough. And
I feel like I should have a pen.
I will admit to not like really listening to a lot of the stuff that he had done previously. I know that Telefon Tel Aviv used to be a duo, and one of the guys died in the last decade between the record they made before and this record. And I know that there's a connection to that shoegaze / drone group Belong that the guy from Telephone Tel Aviv, I think his name's Josh Eustace, like is sort of affiliated with them, and he's also kind of in the Nine Inch Nails ancillary players orbit or something like that. Like he has done some work with them, but this record is like a really weird electronic record that has occasional vocals, and it's very sad and like really minimal, and like the even the album cover is minimal. All the song titles form a sentence, and it's like, so if you read them in order, it forms this weird sentence that says something like, I'm standing at the bottom of the ocean with my arms aloft, or something like that.
That would mean you're drowning, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a dark record, but I like it a lot. I listened to it quite a few times. In that, like, they sort of sound like this old electronic musician who called himself Monotone or something like that. He made a couple of records that got reissued in the last like 5 years or whatever. One of them has a black cover and the other one has a blue cover, and it's basically like really minimal electronic music with vocals. And that's what the Telephone Tel Aviv record is like too.
Telephone's been doing stuff for like 25, 30 years now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Or they, I mean, it was a group, obviously, but...
Yeah, and it's weird because, like, the record before this was, like, 10 years prior to this or something.
Really?
And it sounds the most like this record, and the record before that sounds almost nothing like either of them. And it's even farther back in time.
Yo, it's bonkers to me that people can, like, make music over a span of 2 decades and still put out relevant and good music. That like blows my mind.
It's weird. I mean, I always think of it stuff like, how do you go that long between releases and like still have a project, use that same name, have it be a current thing you're doing?
Because they're probably working on stuff all the time and just like, we're not ready to. I think that, for me personally, that's what it would be.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think you don't have to be as busy with your music if you're not making it your full-time gig.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
That makes sense. All right, shit. So, Jerry, who do you got at number 3?
I'm going with Moth Mother by Lazy Legs. Shout out to Lazy Legs.
Big shout out to Lazy Legs.
Oh, yeah.
We love them. Homies for life.
The new record, it's going further away from a typical shoegaze sound, but you still hear it as the bass, and that's awesome. I love the vocals, and some of the songs are just so hypnotic, especially like Cloth Eater. It just has this weird lumbering tempo to it that I could listen to all day. It just and they use strings.
Yeah, the last 2 songs on Moth Mother are real good. I love the string arrangements they did, and I think
jealous of them.
I want to say that Laura from Lazy Legs told me that they got a friend of theirs to play strings on that, and like they just were like, can you come over and do it? And that she came over and just kind of improvised over it, and it doesn't sound that way. It sounds very composed, like they worked on it for a long time. Or at least it does to me anyway.
Dude, this is another album that got lost in the shuffle for me. Because I remember listening to it when it came out on Spotify, and then I completely forgot about it. So I have to dive into this album because it was definitely enjoyable when I listened to it.
Plus, I think initially it wasn't supposed to come out till 2020. It was like going to come out
That's what I heard
or something. But then they had just had things happen. So it kind of, got lost in the shuffle. Since it wasn't coming out whenever I thought it was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think initially they had a deal to do a vinyl version of it that was supposed to come out in like this month, and they ended up something happened with the label where they
just couldn't do it.
They either couldn't do it or they didn't want to do it on the timetable that the band was looking at, and they ended up putting it out themselves instead.
Damn.
Did they tour or something?
No, they barely even play live.
Yeah, it's like they.
So what was the rush?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
We'll message them and ask.
So I have a question for you guys. How much harder is it to self-release an album as opposed to having it released or backed by a label?
It depends. Format really depends, because if you do a tape, that's way cheaper than if you try to press a record. I think the minimum price for pressing a record is probably around $2,500.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
I never would have thought it'd be that much.
And that's for like a low run, like your minimum run before you go into 300 probably.
Yeah, that's a low run. Plus, it doesn't include like nice artwork or anything like that. It's like black and white labels. I mean, that's bare minimum.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So that answers the question right there. Shit.
Oh, you want to hear something even more stupid? That's about the same price to do a 7-inch as well.
What?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I actually just saw it today. Pirates Press has a 507 inches with full color labels and full color. This is not an ad, by the way, but it was like $1,500. I guess they run specials once in a while. But you're right, and that's why 7 inches are so expensive anymore, and no one buys them.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, like, my 7 inches. I couldn't even tell you the last time I listened to a 7-inch.
I've debated getting rid of all mine so many times.
Oh yeah, same here. It's like except for saving the ones that are like sentimental to me, or like stuff that I really really like Slow Dive 7 inches or something that I have.
I'm not getting rid of that shit.
Let me know if you got any page 99 stuff I can get off your hands.
Oh, Tom, I tell you right now that I might still have one. I got rid of most of that stuff at one time, but like my friend Will used to be in page 9, or he used to be in Process is Dead. And so I have like some weird versions of that Process is Dead page 99 split that they did.
Oh.
He was when he was in Process is Dead, he was briefly also in this old screamo band I used to play in. Like he's did like double duty in both bands for a little while. But I think that's the only Process is Dead stuff he plays on.
All right.
You said duty.
Yeah, for me, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, for me, 7 inches are mostly a collector's thing so I can have like the page 99 stuff, all the mount area, the microphone stuff. And the only time I listen to it is like if I'm going to have a day where I'm going to sit down and stand right next to the record player.
Yeah.
And,
flip step over
that's
all
what
the
I'm
time.
listening. Yeah, exactly.
So fuck. All right. So my turn for number 3. So my pick for number 3, Motherfucking Without by you boys from Lacing.
Oh,
so good, dude. So
thank you.
Fuck those guys.
I talked to you guys about this when I had you on the podcast, but dude, listening to Without for the first time from like start to finish, I just kind of sat down, I pulled up the lyrics that you had sent me and I went through it and then literally had to like fucking get up and like walk around because I felt so like like I just got hit in the face and was completely just disheveled. My wife wound up asking me that, like, are you all right? Because I was definitely like completely shook after listening to that album.
We keep them shook.
And I love everything about this album. I love, Joe, that you did talk about some of the stuff that you do on the album, the trauma that you felt dealing with abuse from your father, and just some of the other stuff that we talked about during our conversation. That to me makes the album so compelling and so rich. And for me, that's one of the things that I absolutely love about it, is that when I listen to it, it is super good music, but it also kind of fucks me up at the same time. And, you know, any album that can do that is always going to be an album that I will appreciate.
Well, I'm just glad that somebody's reading the lyrics since we put them in there. Sometimes I feel like they just sit out there, but I'm not big on reading lyrics either. It's hard to say, you know, because sometimes you'll like I'll be listening to something and then like later on realize how intense the lyrics are rather than like sitting down with a lyric sheet. But yeah, thank you. That means a lot. And all I can say is that I don't know how long it's going to take us to do the next record, and we've already started talking about it, and I think lyrically it's going to be very different from this record.
Now that the album has been out a little bit, right, and you mentioned earlier, I had on the podcast, I'm totally drawing a blank at his name, Tyler Kershaw from Funeral Advantage, and he put out an EP where it delves pretty heavily into some shit that he dealt with, and afterwards he felt he didn't want to put out music that was that personal because he felt like he peeled the onion back too much. Do you feel that at all in regards to Without and some of the stuff that you talk about in the album? Or do you still feel okay with the fact that you did delve into some of that trauma and abuse that you dealt with growing up?
Well, I mean, I think I did what I did because, I mean, it feels like a lie to do something that's not that, if that makes sense. And I remember my wife telling me, like, before the record came out, you know, she was like, are you sure you want to let people know that that's what this record is about? Only because, like, once that information is out there, you can't take it back. And not like, do you really want to have a record that's about that, but do you really want other people to know that part of your life in a way that, like, you know, they might be judgmental, or that they might be able, you know, I might lose a certain privacy or whatever. But now that it's done and it's over with, I can tell you that I've had like 4 or 5 people like send us private messages and say that like they've been through stuff like that. and that they really appreciated, having somebody out there that said like, hey, I went through something like this too, and like it's really okay to talk about it. Sometimes it really helps to just have somebody else validate that, like, people go through that thing. So people are out there right now going through those exact same awful things, and the only way to get through something like that is to, I don't know, I guess it's different for everybody, but it certainly, I feel like it can certainly help people, and seems like it has to know that somebody else has gone through it, and that you can make it out the other side, if that makes sense.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I commend you, man, because I feel like it's a ballsy thing to write an album that is so personal and delves into some of that shit. Because when I had you guys on the podcast to talk about the album, I shared some stuff about my relationship with my father, and then afterwards I was like, ooh, do I want to really put this out there? But I was like, well, whatever. So yeah, I could totally understand that. And I can imagine that individuals that dealt with similar sort of shit can appreciate this album, even just for that reason, even if they weren't super into it. One of the things that I love about this album too is I love that it has moments on it that are just sonically beautiful, but then it has moments that are like, I feel like I want to like headbang listening to it. Like it kind of has these moments that
awesome.
It's got these like ups and downs, and I love that, right? I love the song Swirl. It's so fucking good. I love 92. We talked about how catchy that goddamn song is. It's so awesome. Glacial, dude. Oh my God, I fucking love Glacial. I listen to that song so much. And then Regret, man. Regret is such an awesome song. And Regret is one of those songs where I'm like, oh, I feel like I want to lose my mind listening to it.
I feel like we want to lose our minds when we play that song too.
Hell
so
yeah.
Nothing wrong with rocking.
Oh, I was going to talk about this record real quick too then. So Joe sent me over the summer, or maybe early fall, you sent me the record originally, I think.
Yeah.
It might not have been mastered or something. See, but I didn't have the lyric situation, and I really liked the record. And then I heard the podcast, listened to it more. We had our conversations about, I was one of those people who DM'd you. And I listened to the record on a late night drive, and I mean, it really fucking hit home with me. Yeah. And the same thing what he said, I like a lot of noisy shit, so I think it's sonically beautiful all around. So, yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
Hell yeah. So, all right, I already talked about my pick for number 2, so we're going to skip me this round. So, shit, we'll go back to Tom. Give us your number 2 pick for the year.
Mine, number 2 pick for last year was Crushing by Julia Jacklin. I'm trying to think of the name of the label it came out on. I love a lot of stuff on this label. It has the JSOM record, and I think they did early Braid stuff, but I didn't know anything about her. I saw a couple friends from Salt Lake City just posting about it when it came out on Instagram, and I said, I'll check it out, and I really, really liked it. I listened to it, and then I started working night shift at my job, super long overnight hours, like 7 days a week, and it became my record that I listened to every morning driving. So I was just isolated from family, friends, just worn down, and I think that record, just listen to every day. It probably put me into a worse position than I was, but just something about this record, I just love it so much, and I keep constantly coming back to it. It has slow ballads, it has kind of more upbeater stuff. I don't know, I love this record. Lyrically, everything.
Dude, this album is so fucking good. So because it was only recently that I listened to it. I saw this, like the artwork for this album multiple times when it was released, which was, I'll tell you right now, actually I can't tell you right now, but it was released from Polyvinyl Records. And I'd seen
Polyvinyl, that's the label.
And I kept seeing the artwork, and I really like the artwork for the album. But I'd never listened to Julia Jacklin before. And then you shared your favorite albums of the year in the Flenser group. And so when I saw that how high this album was on your list, I was like, let me check this out. And as soon as I listened to her music, I'm like, I'm going to fucking love this, because it's that like folky singer-songwriter sort of like style of music. And it's funny, dude, because when I listened to it, I was listening to it one night making dinner, and my wife was in the kitchen with me, and I was like, oh, I think you'll like this album. It's not going to be as depressing as a lot of the shit I listened to. And she started listening.
Yeah.
She's like, this album sounds pretty depressing, man. Are you sure about that? And I was like, you're probably right. I just listen to really depressing shit. So yeah, it is. There are definitely moments where it sounds, or there are definitely moments in the lyrics where I'm just like, oh fuck, these are some serious things she's talking about.
Oh fuck.
Yeah. I mean, like the first song, the Body, she's talking about like an ex-boyfriend or ex-lover taking a photograph of her and then potentially using that. And I remember listening to it first, I was like, shit, dude.
Yes. When I listen to that record now, I'm still transported to that time last year where I listened to it so heavily. So it's definitely one of those records. But you're right about the singer-songwriter folk stuff, but like the great thing about it is most of the songs are one or two chords, and it's just the bass player, the drummer, and the lead guitarist changing things up to make it seem like different things are happening. And it's like, on that standpoint of listening to it as a songwriter too, I'm just like, holy fuck.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Absolutely. So, all right. So, Jerry, what do you got for number 2?
Andy Stott's It Should Be Us. That is, it's going to fall in the dark electronic realm. He's probably my favorite electronic musician working today. And this record kind of came out of nowhere. Like, I think it got announced the day before it came out. And I think so. It was late in the year too, but I hate ordering from overseas if I can help it. But I was like, nah, we're going to get this.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
So I got it and I love it. It's different than the last couple. He described it as more his club record, but it's definitely not like dancey at all.
It doesn't have those vocals like the
club dancey.
You know how like the other Andy Stott records, like the 3 before, all had the vocals on them. Like he had his childhood piano teacher doing vocals, and it sort of had like almost like a slow divey kind of vibe to it.
On the vocals,
on the vocal aspect. And like this record is like doesn't have that, so it's more like, I don't know if you guys ever heard that record that he did with the guy from Dim Dyke Stair called
Millie.
the Millie and Andrea record.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's more like that.
Yeah, but this is like he goes into some really deep rhythms and beats on this. Like, it'll give your sub a workout.
Well, yeah, I was gonna. A friend from New York just saw him recently.
Yeah, he played Hospital Fest.
Yeah, it was Hospital Fest, and he said it was like one of the heaviest things he's ever seen in his life. What you just said, the subs were getting a workout.
Yeah, I bet. I was, I actually, when I first heard about that show, I was like, I'm fucking going to New York to see the show. Oh, wait, it's the day of our release show in town. I'm not. So,
don't you love that?
Yeah.
Well, we messed up too in that, like, down here, Andy Stott played Big Ears in Knoxville like the year before last or something like that. And Jerry and I both talked about going, but Big Ears used to do a thing where like you could buy tickets to individual events in like the first couple of years.
Cool.
During the first couple of years that they did it. So like, you know, I got to see Christian Finesse, and I got to see When No Tricks Point Never, and like I'm trying to think of who else I saw. I saw
Vatican Shadow.
I saw Vatican Shadow, and I saw Joanna Newsom. But now it's like, in order to go to Big Ears, you have to buy a day pass for each individual day instead.
But the day he was there, they also had the Sun Ra Orchestra and Wolf Eyes.
Yeah,
which would have just been
so we had been talking about going to that, and like we ended up, neither of us did it.
And dude, I don't dance. I'm not into that aspect of it, but I will sit in the corner and let my ears die from your subs. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him in 2015, and that's what it was. It was just wild.
Dude, so I'd never heard his music before, and this totally sounds right up my alley, so I'm going to have to check this out after this.
I think you would like it.
Side note, if you also want some really heavy dark electronics, even though it's not on my list, give it an honorable mention, that Zonal record. I think I mentioned it when we were on before, but it's Justin Broderick from Godflesh and Kevin Martin that does The Bug, and it'll wreck you.
I really like that record, but I think it could have been about 20 minutes shorter.
Yes, I'll agree.
It's a long record, but there's a lot of great stuff on that record, or like cut up into 2 EPs or something. I don't know, but
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a pretty good record though, and it's right up that same alley.
So hell yeah. So Joe, you didn't give us your number 2 yet, did you?
I didn't.
All right, so give us your number 2. My
number 2 is a record that was also on your long list, and that is the Be Forest album called Knocturne.
Oh, so good.
And I love that record. I somehow, even though they're a shoegaze / dark punk, post-punk band, I somehow they weren't on my radar before 2019 or whatever. And that record like blew me away. It's so it's so bleak sounding. Like everything about it is super bleak. Like the cover to it's really dark. Like the music sounds really dark. I love her voice.
Oh, so beautiful.
And I don't know. I played that record a ton, and then I went back and like listened to the two before it and played them a ton too.
Yeah, dude. Their one that came out prior to that is Earthbeat is really good. So yeah, I love Nocturne, man. It is such a great album, and it kind of like surprised me that they were putting out music. I had no clue that they were going to be putting out this album, and I don't remember where I saw. Maybe it was on their Instagram or Facebook or some shit, seeing that it was going to be coming out, and I got so excited. And yeah, this album is like, I love the album art for the cover because I feel like it perfectly reflects the album. It is a very dark album at times, and it's also just a very beautiful album as well.
Yeah,
I will have to check this out.
Oh yeah, dude, it's really good. Totally worth listening to.
I feel like someone else at one point, suggested it to me, and then I go through this phase where I'm like really over post-punk. Like that, when someone says post-punk and I just hear that vocal in my head, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to listen to it.
This thing, I don't know if you guys have ever listened to that group, Tropic of Cancer. That I think they have maybe one LP, but mostly put out EPs, and it was like one of the guys, I want to say it was a guy that used to be in that electronic group Sandwell District, and his...
Are they from Louisville?
No.
Okay.
No, but it was like him and his wife, I think her name is Carmela Lobo or something like that. They did a bunch of EPs and an album together as Tropic of Cancer, and it's the closest thing I can think of to Be Forest, where it's like really dark, really slow post-punk, very moody sounding, lots of synths too.
Yeah, I'll definitely check this out.
Almost like a pornography era Cure album.
Dude, Tom, when you listen to them, listen to the song Bengala. It's so good.
All right, I'm putting this down. I'll listen to this tonight when we get off of this. I'll probably text you.
So dude, that song Bengala, because it's just like the whole song is a fucking arpeggio. When I listen to that song, I'm just like, I'm sure for you guys that will be easier for you guys to play that, but for me, when I listen to it, I'm just like, what the fuck? How are they playing this?
That's one hell of an arpeggio.
Yeah, man, it's ridiculous. All right, so we are finally at our albums of the year. I'm going to have Jerry start us off with his album of the year. So, Jerry, give us your pick for album of the year.
Okay, but before I do that, can I give you my honorable mentions? I'll make it real quick.
Go ahead, dude.
Okay, Acrylics, Sinking In on Iron Lung Records. Just straightforward, hardcore punk with like some cool, fucked up, weird surfy type leads. I just love... As far as a punk band goes, they're probably my favorite right now. One cool thing about the record is they not only re-recorded my favorite song from a 7-inch, but they somehow made it better. Because usually when bands do that, it doesn't work. Blackwater Holy Lights, Vela Winter on Easy Riding Records. They're like a heavy, dark psych type band. But they have like really...
Oh, I forgot about them.
Yeah, they're really good. And they're like...
That record rips.
Really beautiful vocal harmonies and synths, kind of sets it apart. There's a couple parts that do sound... I know everybody throws around Black Sabbath when talking about stuff like that, but like it literally sounds like a Black Sabbath part, but that's okay because Sabbath rules. The self-titled Blushing album, it's beautiful, but it does have a heaviness to it. I'm sure they get compared to Lush a lot, and I can hear it a smidge, but they're definitely not ripping that off.
Majorly agree with all that. Want to shout out to all the Blushing crew. We love them. They were super cool.
Next up, Have a Nice Life, Sea of Worry. I know everybody here, except for Tom, likes it. Tom hates it. And no, I love the A-side. I didn't think I was going to like the record when I heard the whatever first track came out, but I heard the whole thing. It just rules.
Tom, you're tripping. Sea of Worry is great, man.
We'll get there on your number one, bud.
It's not my number one. It wasn't my number one.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I was surprised too. And next,
I'm sorry, Dan, Tim, and the boys.
Next up is Everything DaBaby did this year, because I really like rap music, and I don't hear enough talk about rap on your show.
I really like what DaBaby did when he was trying to get fucking paid, but somehow he got told that he was stealing.
Yeah, that was stupid.
Fuck that promoter.
Exactly. But everything he did, like as far as big name rap goes, he's my favorite right now. I will always have a special place in my heart for Southern rap. I know the whole world does now, but I grew up down here, so fuck them. And yeah, but kind of ties into my album of the year, and that is Clipping. There existed an addiction to blood. I really, really like noise, and I really, really like rap, and they put them together perfectly. And on this record, they were talking about it being their horror rap album, but it's not just like ripping off 3 6 Mafia or the Memphis sound. It's more like reality is horror. Like instead of zombies, you have like crackheads and alcoholics roaming the streets. Instead of like zombies attacking the farmhouse, it's a song that sounds like cops raiding a trap house.
I'm trying to remember what the
production on this record is fucking insane.
Yeah.
The last track is just the sound of a piano burning, which is kind of a cover song, actually.
You just sold that to me because I have the record. I just have not gotten to it yet, and now I need to get to it.
I love it, love it, love it. Their guest stars are all good. Everything from LeChat from the Memphis rap scene to the Rita. Yeah, I can't say enough.
What other record can you say that has LeChat and the Rita on the
exactly.
Right?
And the sequel to it's like the best rap song of 2019 for sure. Like the one where it's like it starts out and you can hear all the vocals super clear, but by the end it's like distorted to the point that you can't tell what's happening.
And like there's one track that basically is about getting caught trying to rip off a drug dealer, and the production on it, it's like if you listen to it on headphones, it's like the cars are playing the beats, they're driving behind you and beside you and stuff. It's just amazing all around. And there you go. My album of the year.
Oh, yeah. All right. So, Tom, give us your album of the year.
Nocebo-Elizabeth Color Wheel. That was technically my favorite record of 2018, but it didn't come out yet, so I could not do it until last year. I'm very awful with words, but I remember seeing them that year. We played a few times over the years, but goosebumps. Whenever I see them, it's just pure goosebumps. And we got to do a bunch of shows together this year. And every night I was like, I cannot follow this. This band is just fucking amazing. The stuff they're working on for their next thing is even crazier. I love the music. I love them as people. It's just, yeah, it's crazy.
They are insane live. Their live set is freaking insane and amazing. And Lane has such a presence, not only just her voice being super dynamic and the styles that she can do when she's singing, but just her presence up on the stage is something else.
The whole band's presence. I mean, Connor, when they're drumming, I mean, I don't know how Connor has a voice after each show because he is screaming their head off to like the songs. And it's just like everybody, you could tell it's definitely something that's 100% cathartic. Like they need to be doing this. That's the vibe I get from watching them play, and I'm sure they would agree. But
you could see that video that's on YouTube where it's like them collaborating with you, Tom, is one of my favorite things. Like it is
that
super
video's
intense, and it's just
I lost my voice for the rest of tour by doing that because we did that thing like 5 or 6 times, maybe longer, and I went full on each time.
As a bystander, I'll say it's worth it to have seen it, even on video.
Yeah, I felt bad for the next 2 nights of tour because I'm like, people are even trying to talk to me. I'm like, I can't talk. And then like I was like purposely putting songs in my set list that were like less vocals.
Tom, you'll know the guitarist's name. I don't know their name, but typically wears braids.
Emmett.
So I love. He like will strum his guitar kind of like slowly at times and then intense as fuck. I love that he does that.
Oh yeah, it's all for reasons, obviously, but that like I said, that whole band, you could tell they feel every moment what they're doing, and that's what really makes it for me. The genre-wise, it's not even like, you could see and this is what I've been saying like on Twitter and everything for a while, you could see an influence, but they are not mimicking that influence, and that's the biggest thing I have right now with a lot of bands. They're completely a melting pot.
Absolutely, yeah. What's your favorite song from the album?
I would say 23. I mean, it's the catchiest one.
It's so good.
It has like sing along chorus if you wanted to. It's got the fucking black metal parts. I mean, I'm glad they picked that as the first single they pushed out because that really shows what they are as a band. They are all over the place and doing it all at the same time.
I love I guess it's like a chorus, right? I love the chorus of that track. It's so fucking good. But so when I did my last episode, I talked about this album. I fucking love the song. I got to read this because I can never pronounce it correctly. Somnambulist. I hope I'm pronouncing that rightly, but dude, that song is so incredible, and that's another song I would listen to on repeat because it is like haunting, that song.
Yeah, the whole record's good. Even like their drone section in towards the end is just amazing. That's what I want to listen to.
Hell yeah. All right, so we got Jerry, we got Tom's, Joe's. What's your pick for album of the year?
Oh, number one for me is going to be the self-titled Duster album. And it didn't come out until like right before Christmas. So it's like one of those things where like I liked Duster before, and I think maybe I just sort of like got more into them in the last like year or two. And maybe it was one of those things where like that record came out at the right time. Like, you know how a record can come out like right at the right time for you. And I think that that's kind of what happened here. And it just got a ton of play for me over the last like, month basically since it's been out. And it's not like that it does anything like super different than the other Duster records. Although like there's a song on it. There's a song on it in the middle of it. I think it's called Damaged or something like that, where it's like it starts off and it sounds like almost like a country song with an acoustic guitar. And in the middle of it, it's got this like what sounds like a pedal steel guitar from space comes in, and as soon as it comes in, it's there for like 30 seconds to a minute, and then the song ends, and you're like, I could have listened to that song by itself for an hour. Do that.
Yeah, that was my number 6 record of the year, and it's only because I love my top 5 so much, but that's another reason why I waited, because that record is just incredible. Billy from Elizabeth Color Wheel was on tour, and he's like, yo, he texted me, he's like, yo, new Duster just dropped, and I was like, oh, it's out already? I could not stop listening to it. I still listen to it a ton even right now. I mean, it's very much a Duster record, but it's also not. They also kind of showed off all the bands that have been trying to rip off their sound for the last few years that, no, we are the originators. This is our shit. We're doing this right.
So, Tom, I told you this. I was kind of let down by this album, man. I was so looking forward to this album. And
you had too much hype built up.
I don't know if it was hype, but yeah, I love the song Chocolate and Mint. That's the one song when I listen to this album I can get into.
Rips.
But
I love that song.
Other than that, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it, like you were saying, Tom, I don't know if like the hype got me too overhyped for it or what. But
that happens quite a bit, I think.
Oh yeah,
it totally does,
especially in this day and age.
That guitar tone on the Duster album though is just like, it sounds like it's just slightly overdriven, but still very clean and beautiful. And like every time they would like strum a chord, it sounds like it's just kind of blooming from the dirt or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I love the record, and like it was same thing. I'm like, okay, new Duster record's gonna come out. I didn't have much hype for it. I'm like, it could have went one of two ways, and obviously it went to me. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Fuck. All right, so Duster. So maybe I should spend some more time with that album then, because I've only listened to it a handful of times.
You should. I mean, there's plenty of records that, obviously they don't hit you right at first, and you just gotta keep listening to it sometimes, unless it's, terrible. But if there's something, no, I mean, that's true. I mean, if something's just kind of like, I kind of like this. Sometimes for me, I need to, force myself to listen to it a few more times. Because records shouldn't be judged by 1 or 2 listens.
No.
That's a good point.
Definitely not.
All right, I'll give that album some more listens. I'll report back to you guys and let you know. So my pick for album of the year, Ephemeral by Mr. Kitty. I'd never listened to Mr. Kitty before listening to this album. I couldn't have told you what kind of music Mr. Kitty was. I had no clue that I would even like his music. But I absolutely fell in love with this fucking album. It is so good. And so Mr. Kitty is like an electric, like EDM synth pop project from Forest La Marie. And I discovered his music because he went on a tour with Pastel Ghost, who I really like her music. And I said, I've been having a really good spat of discovering bands and artists from just checking them out, seeing that they're touring with other bands and artists that I liked. And I decided I'm going to give Mr. Kitty a listen. And I listened to a song on the album called Weak Side, or My Weak Side, and it fucking bumps. And I love the song, but the album had 2 things going for it that I typically don't like. One is that it's super fucking long. It's 2 hours long, and I typically...
What?
Dude, yeah, it's 2 hours...
You should not have any cons for your number 1 record of the year.
So hold on. No, just wait. Just listen. Typically, I do not like long albums. Like typically I'm like a 9 to 10 song kind of a guy for an LP, 45, 50 minutes long max for an LP. So when I listened to it and I saw that it was 2 hours long, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be into this. But I just kept wanting to listen to My Weak Side. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed. I fell in love with that song, then the next song, and so on and so forth. And I can now listen to that album from start to finish and love every single track on it. It is so fucking good. I would listen to this. So I'm a super big nerd and I play this like Star Wars game. I would just play this. I'd play Star Wars and I would just put this album on. And this was like my routine whenever I would play Star Wars. When I would cook, when I would clean my apartment, this was like my go-to album. It is so fucking good. And like every song on it is a total banger. It is so goddamn good. And one of the things that I think also makes this album hit for me is, aside from the fact that it is totally a dance-worthy album, the album delves pretty heavily into Forrest's friend having committed suicide and his emotions and experience dealing with that. So it has parts there are definitely moments in the album that are depressing as fuck, even on songs that are really upbeat and make you want to dance. And I love that. I love that it is depressing at times, but also makes me want to cut a fucking rug. It is so goddamn good. So my favorite songs from this album, My Weak Side is awesome. Disconnect Lover is great. Anguish is probably like my pick for song of the year. It's so goddamn good. And then Whip. Whip is so awesome because he literally uses like the sound of a whip. And other than Devo, I don't know if there are any other. What's that song that Devo has with the fucking whip? Is it called Whip It?
Whip It.
Yeah. Other than that song, I can't think of any other songs that use like a whip in it for part of the like beat. And he does, and it is just so fucking good. So yeah, my pick for album of the year, Ephemeral by Mr. Kitty.
I was gonna say, if you like the fact that he used like an actual whip for like, you know, an instrument, I would check out the electronic duo Matamos. They do tons of shit like that, and
oh hell yeah,
they were Bjork's backing group for a while too.
What's it called? Matamos,
yeah.
They have a record called A Chance to Cut is a Chance to Cure.
Yes.
And the whole record is made by using weird surgical instruments and sounds.
Yeah.
Like there's liposuction samples and drills. Yeah,
it's
oh
wacky.
My God, dude.
I saw a clip of them with backing Bjork. It was the show that was on HBO. It was in a church. It was Bjork singing with an Inuit women's choir, Matmos, and a harp player. And I think somebody was doing effects on the harp, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I saw part of that too, and like one of the Matmos things that they did was like one of the guys was shuffling a deck of cards.
Yeah.
And they were miking the shuffling deck of cards. It was super wild.
Dude, that's wild. So one other thing I have to say about this song that I love about, or this album, is the very last track on the album, I Did It All For You, it's an a cappella song. And I usually don't listen to a cappella music, don't find myself enjoying a cappella songs, but this song is fucking incredible. And the fact that he can sing a cappella and make me fall in love with that song is another reason why I fell in love with this album. So yeah, such a great album. I would highly recommend it if you are wanting to listen to music that makes you want to dance. This is totally an album for you. So shit, guys, we just talked about a bunch of cool albums.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I have a couple things to listen to, I guess.
Hell yeah. Same. So fuck, man. I thank you guys so much for your time and placating me. Like I said, I was just like thinking about this at work. I was like, man, it'd be cool to have some people on to talk about the music that they liked. And you guys are down, and I'm so appreciative of the fact that you guys are willing to join me. So thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was super fun.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for having us.
So a couple things. When I sat down with these dudes and had our conversation, it was like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, actually. And since then, I have spent a bunch of time listening to the self-titled Duster album. And I'm so glad that those guys talked me into giving it another shot, because that album is seriously freaking good. I think the hype got to me a little bit, and I was expecting something else, but it is a fantastic freaking album. The other thing is I have to apologize to Kyle from Mirror-Drowse because, I'm so sorry, Kyle. I constantly refer to Lightmere as Lightroom, and I did it during our conversation with these three dudes. So sorry, Kyle. And then lastly, I wish I spent more time with that Liturgy album because seriously, that album is probably one of, if not my favorite metal albums to come out probably in the last like 3 to 5 years. It is fucking fantastic. I wish I spent more time with that album before I released my 50 favorite releases for 2019 because that album absolutely would have made it into my top 5 because it is fucking spectacular. I'll make sure to add links in the show notes to how you could check out all of these albums, all of these bands that the four of us talked about. Let me know what you guys listened to the most in 2019. I've had some people reach out to me and say, hey, check out this band or check out this album. I think you'll like it. And I fucking love that. I love learning about new bands, new albums that I'm not aware of or that maybe I didn't think I would like and you guys recommend it to me. So let me know what you guys have been listening to and what you guys were really into last year because, yeah, I'm always down for finding new bands and new music. And then if you are not aware, for those of you that either live on the East Coast or are willing to travel to the East Coast to New York City in March, and I'm totally drawing a blank in the date, it's either March 20th or March 21st, there's going to be the Flenser Showcase show, and it's going to be fucking awesome. The 2 shows last year were incredible. This year it's going to be 1 date on the East Coast, and it's going to be Drowse's performing Elizabeth Color Wheel. Thom is going to be doing an acoustic set, which should be awesome as hell. Thom and Heather Fortune are also going to be performing, and then there's going to be this like surprise Flenser collaboration set, which, yeah, who the hell knows what they've got in store for us. So yeah, if you haven't gotten tickets are on sale, so go buy tickets and let's hang out that weekend because I'll be driving down to New York City for that show. If you have not, subscribe to Create and Destroy, rate the show on iTunes, help other people find this podcast, always appreciated. Follow the show on social media as well, super appreciated when you guys do that. Otherwise, get out there, create something cool. I will see you next time.